Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we'll be playing another game. Hopefully this time I can play a little bit better than I have in previous videos. But like always, I'll be giving you commentary and hopefully you'll find this instructive. Let's get started. So we're going to do a game in 15, 10-second increment. Yeah, I've had some pretty bad games lately on this for this channel. You can see my ratings even drop below 1800. So hopefully we'll be able to get that back up. We've had a lot of games of black. We're having another one today. D4. Okay, so here I've got many options, of course. This is the first D4 game we've had on this channel, at least since the reboot. I could play a Dutch defense. I'm pretty familiar with that. Or I could play a nimzo-indian, Queen's Indian kind of setup, which I'm still kind of learning. So let's try that. Let's try a nimzo or a Queen's Indian. So we're gonna play e6, and we'll get a nimzo-indian. All right. So bishop e4, pinning the knight, fighting for the control of the e4 square. And let's see, e3. Now, a couple moves here. There's c5, there's d5, and there's also castling. All right, I'm gonna just castle and preserve some flexibility. All right, an early a3. So obviously, I actually do have the option of retreating the bishop, but the more principled move would be to double white's pawns. And now we have an interesting structure where white has doubled c pawns, and white is sort of, you could argue that a3 was a waste of a tempo. Now, in exchange for this, white does have the bishop pair. All right, so how should I proceed? I think I'm going to start with c5 and try to prevent white's c4 pawn from moving. I want to fix this structure. I want to fix this structure in place so I can then attack these weak pawns. All right, bishop d3, preparing e4. I'm going to play knight c6, which sort of indirectly prevents e4 because I have pressure against the pawn on d4. All right. Now, knight e2, developing, preparing to castle. So what I would like to do is I would like to play b6, bishop a6, d6, rook c8, moves in the then maybe knight a5. So moves in that, I don't know the exact order, but I want to play b6, bishop a6, rook c8, d6, knight a5, and then I'll be threatening c takes d4 to potentially win this c4 pawn. So how should I start? Let's see, I'll start with b6. And I'm just trying to get this bishop on c8 developed. Because I already blocked it in with e6, so typically when you play e6, you want to do b6 and do a queenside development for that c8 bishop. So white probably is thinking about e4 here, or maybe castling. All right, e4. Now the question is, do I want to allow e5? Right? Do I want to allow e5? I think the answer is no. So I'm going to play d6. Now, bishop g5 for white is interesting. Also just castling. Now, I might want to play e5 myself in the future, because I would be happy to close the center and really just focus on trying to win this c4 pawn, knight a5 and bishop a6. Alright, I can't play knight a5 yet because of e5, so that's going to be a little annoying. I got to do something about this pin on the king's side. I'm going to start by putting in the move h6, creating luft potentially in the future. And then I don't want to play g5 to break this pin right now, but I might want to do that later. Alright, so let's see. What are some moves here? Bishop a6. Bishop a6 is a little bit troublesome because of queen a4, and I can't play knight a5 because of e5. Actually, no, e5 I can take, and the bishop on d3 is undefended. So actually, I do have bishop a6. Other options would be e5. e5 gives up to f5 square, knight g3 to f5. But that's knight g3 runs into g5. So e5 could be interesting as well. Let's see, after e5, white does not want to take a pawn or push the d pawn, so that just creates a little bit more tension in the position. Also, it prevents him from ever playing e5, which would unleash his bishop on d3. So I think e5 is actually a pretty good move. All right, let's do it. Let's do e5. Also, technically, I am attacking on d4. Although I don't really consider that a serious threat. Because I'll have trouble, even if I win the pawn on d4, I'll have trouble holding on to that pawn. Plus, I'll be weakening my structure considerably. right, this d6 pawn, it would be isolated on a open file. Alright, d5 I don't like. Now that this center is closed, I can focus all my energy on attacking the pawn on c4. So I'm going to start with knight a5, preparing bishop a6. And after queen a4 defending, I might want to trade queens with, let's say, queen d7. Actually, no, queen e8, because I don't want to do queen d7, queen takes, knight takes, bishop e7. Now, it's going to be a little bit harder to get a third attacker on this pawn on c4, now that the center is closed. So, I might not have, this might not have been the best plan for me to close the center. But generally, you know, White's the person with the bishop pair, and so White should prefer to have the position be open in general. Now here I can even grab the bishop pair with g5 and knight h5 possibly. But there's no need to do that yet. I would want to wait. I would want to wait for White to castle before I play g5, just so I'm not opening myself up too much in front of my king. All right, so what is White thinking about here? Let's see. White could be thinking of playing queen a4 right away, maybe queen c2, and he wants to defend on c4 by putting the queen on a2. Maybe he plays knight c1, thinking about queen e2. All right, just castling. Just castling. Okay. So now I'm not worried so much about my king side being opened up. Now, White might be planning f4 in the future, trying to open things up. Let's see. What are my options? Well, I could play g5, bishop g3, and then knight h5 if I'm really worried about that bishop. I don't really like that because he will be able to play after h takes g3. He's going to be able to play f4 and sort of break open my king side. Or I could continue attacking on the queen side, which I think is the better way to do this. Now, I could play queen e8 followed by bishop a6 to try to really win this guy. But after queen e8, he can double my pawns. So that might be an argument for playing g5. So g5, bishop g3, queen e8. Then maybe h4. Yeah, and that kind of opens me up. No, I would rather I'd rather trade queens first, um, and then have my kingside structure get broken a little bit, which I think is what is going to happen after bishop a6, queen a4, queen e8. We'll probably trade queens, and he'll take on f6. But I like that position. Plus, this pawn on c4 is very weak. All right, let's go bishop a6. Keep it simple. Alright, so queen a4 looks to me like the only move, but I could always get surprised. Oh, he does want to take, but he took a little early, giving up his bishop pair. So now I don't have to double my pawns. I don't have to double my pawns. I think, yeah, I think I shouldn't either. I think I should keep my pawns undoubled. So this is a little clever because now my queen can't immediately challenge his queen. So he bought himself a little bit of time here. Alright, do I want to play just queen e7 and then back to e8? Do I want to try to prevent f4? So g5 is a move. g5, and then if he tries to prepare more with g3, what about queen f3 here? It looks annoying, but it's probably not... Oh, queen f3, and then maybe I can swing the bishop back, c8 to h3. Also, after g5, if he plays g3, I've got g4. Alright, I'm going to play g5 here. Again, when you've got pressure on one side of the board, like I got pressure on the queen side right now, you want to try to reduce the counterplay on the other side of the board. Now, knight g3 is a good move. He's aiming to put his knight on f5. Maybe it's a move that I underestimated. I underestimated how annoying this might be. And after knight f5, he can drop the knight back to e3 and defend on c4. So that's actually quite a useful resource. Now, I don't have to live with it. I could always play bishop c8 now and swap that knight off. Other move is queen f4. I don't like queen f4 so much. Knight h5 is a little bit of an issue. Queen e7, continuing my plan to trade, doesn't really work too well because of knight f5, hidden e7 and d6, and h6. So no, I can't live with a knight on f5, so I'm going to have to play bishop c8. Which this is telling me that I probably misplayed this by closing the center. I overestimated my own pressure. So I was a little too quick to play e5. So I'm back in this position. I probably should have just started with bishop a6 right here. Would have been a lot stronger. Bishop a6 right away. I think. But still, here in this position, I have a hard time believing that white is better in this position. They're just, other than these weak light squares on h5 and f5, there isn't anything else for him to really latch onto. Alright, swinging the queen back over, or trying to swing it back over to the king side. It's a good plan by my opponent. Now, there's a bit of a situation here where I could play bishop a6 and almost force a repetition, which I don't like doing. But if it turns out to be the best move, then I will do it. Alright, what are some other options here? I could play just bishop d7, but that could end up being a waste of a tempo, because I'll swap on f5 shortly. I could play king h7, king g7. King g7 loses. King g7 loses to knight h5 and knight forks. So definitely don't want to do that. King h7 puts my king on the diagonal of this bishop, so I don't really want to do that either. Maybe king h8. So where's this queen going? Where's this queen going if I don't compel it back to a4? Where's it going to go? Is it going to g4 and then maybe h4 next? Or is it going to h5? Either way, it looks kind of dangerous. So the only way I can stop it is by playing g4. But then knight f5, bishop takes, e takes f5. Oh, I guess I have h5 in that. See, everything's getting opened up there. I don't like that. I don't like that at all. So I think if he's going to attack me, I should at least try to get a pawn for it over here on the queen side. So I'm going to go back and just see what he wants to do. If he wants to repeat, or if he wants to try something over here. So he actually does want to repeat. So it's a little bit boring to go for a draw here, but is it my best option? Have I misplayed this enough to do that? You know, this is a tough one. This is a tough one. If this pawn on g5, see, g5 was actually a really bad move. If this, I should not have been so worried about f4. I should have just let him play f4. Here, now, he's got too much counterplay over here. Too much counterplay. All right. So I'll play back, and we'll repeat if he wants it. If he wants it, we'll repeat. All right. So yeah, that was kind of a boring game. Yeah, I had the better position, and I just made a couple really dubious positional choices. I think starting with e5, this move was not so good. White doesn't gain anything by closing the center, but it just kind of makes my attack harder to hit. And then this exchange was actually quite clever. Because now my queen can't get onto this light square diagonal e8 to a4 very quickly, which is what I needed to do after queen a4. And then yeah, g5. Just this was way too sort of ambitious, right? I mean, I'm trying to shut down on f4, but knight g3 to f5 is immediate, right? It's immediate, and I should have seen this coming. Yeah, so what should I have done instead in this position? Maybe queen e7, and look for that trade. Maybe get this rook into the game somehow. I'm not sure exactly how to do that. There's even something to be said for a move like h5 here, I think. No, that's not so good. After f4, e takes, knight takes, this pawn's a weakness. So yeah, I probably should not have been touching these pawns yet. Maybe g6 is the safest and only way to play it. G6, king g7 would have been quiet, maybe a quiet way to improve. All right, so that's kind of my thoughts on this game. You know, without the computer. So let's just take a quick look. Let's analyze it. Let's see what the computer thinks of this game. So I will head over to Lichess now, and we'll just take a quick look at this with the help of the computer. Alright, so let's move this over here. And this as well. Alright. And we'll flip the board because I had the black pieces. And let's just take a look at this. So the opening was a fairly standard. I'm curious. Let's turn on the database and just see what the theory is, right? And so for this, we're gonna actually put on the masters database. All right, so c4, e6. This is the move bishop e4 that that describes the categorizes the nimzo-indian. So this is the nimzo-indian defense for black. E3, very normal reaction. Castles, most common move. And then a3, I think this is kind of like what they call the Samish variation. Or is that f3? Samish might be f3. Anyway, it's kind of like the a3 on move 4, right? It's kind of like a3 on move 4. Black should take, double these pawns, play c5 to fix these pawns. And actually, this is theory. So this so far is theory. Here I departed. So here actually, because I'm still learning this opening, I'm not familiar with everything yet. Here I played d6, which you can see is not the main move. Theory is knight e8, and let's try to understand what is going on with this move. So knight e8 is sort of a reaction to white's potential threat of e5. Also, this knight might regroup itself to either d6 or c7. So how does this continue? After, let's see, castling, bishop a6, starting my plan of pressuring on the queen side. White goes f4, really grabbing some space and showing some very aggressive intentions. And so now I guess I understand the point, the reason this knight went to e8. So the reason this knight went to e8 is so that f4 can be met with f5, right? And so f5 is a standard reaction to f4. Basically, you're preventing white from pushing this pawn any further, and you're keeping some of his pieces bottled up, right? So that's why the knight goes to e8, right? Because it's anticipating f4, f5. It's anticipating that, all right? And so then here looks like we're starting to lose the thread. White's got a couple options now: knight g3 or e takes f5. After knight g3, yeah, just g6, which takes away these squares from the knight. Whenever you have a knight on g3, it's actually usually a good idea to put a pawn on g6, because that takes away that knight's, squares, right? That's what happened in the game. In the game, my pawn was on g5, and I really wished that it was on g6, right? Okay, and then this game will continue. Things are quieting down a little bit in terms of white's pressure, so black can go ahead and continue this fight on the queen side. And so it looks like c takes d4, knight d6, and knight a5 all look pretty reasonable to me. All right, but that's how the game should have gone. So, but doesn't mean that d6 was such a bad move. Just that white didn't punish me for this. So after d6, white should probably just play f4, right? Or castles first? Maybe castles first and then f4. But anyway, the main idea for white in this position should be to pawn storm on the king side with f4, and then either f5 or e5. And then you're going to see that black's knight on f6 is a little misplaced, and black's going to lose a tempo because he hasn't moved this knight away. And also, black is now unable to meet f4 with f5, which is what you want to do. Alright, so d6, a little bit of an inaccuracy, maybe. But white goes bishop g5, and now we've sort of left theory. Bishop g5, which is the wrong plan. I play h6, bishop h4, pretty reasonable. E5, it's not a bad move, not a bad move. D5, knight a5, castles. And here, computer says bishop a6 is a mistake. And actually, the computer wants to go for this g5 followed by knight h5 plan to grab the bishop pair. So after this, you get some position like this. And you attack here. And then what's going on? Why does white not defend on c4? I guess if black plays here, knight takes c4, queen a4 is quite awkward because this is attacked and so is this. And if bishop takes c4, bishop takes, knight takes. Oh, hold on a second. Hold on a second. If bishop takes c4, how does this go? Bishop takes, knight takes. Queen a4, but knight can go back to a5. So I'm not sure why black doesn't grab this pawn immediately. But he goes queen d7 first, which is okay because this pawn cannot be defended now. You're just stopping queen a4. And after a4, you do grab the pawn. Yeah, in this position, I've won my pawn, so I'm definitely on the better side of things here. Arguably, possibly winning. Now, I wonder, after the only thing that's questionable here for me, looking at this line, is does white have anything better than f3? And I know this is a computer line. So the answer is no. Obviously the computer is smart. Pretty smart. But I want to understand for myself why white doesn't have something better than f3 here, right? Why can't white still prevent losing this pawn, right? Why can't he still hold on to it? And so I guess the reason here is, now that I've played g5, my queen is now free to jump on this diagonal, which is what I couldn't do in the game. So I needed, yeah, you know what I need? I needed to play, when I played bishop a6, I needed to play g5 first. And that's a much improved version of this. Okay. I think I kind of considered that, but I didn't consider it deep enough for sure. Right? Because let's say instead of f3, white tries this business, then queen e8 is an immediate kind of reaction to it. And now, yeah, this pawn is a goner, because I'm just going to play bishop a6 next after the queen trade, and this pawn's gone. Okay. So, yeah, big missed opportunity here after castling to play g5. So I should have played g5 there, big missed opportunity. And now white's actually doing just great, apparently. White, however, should not give up this bishop unprovoked, right? This was a big blunder by my opponent. Looks like just f4 is quite strong, because now what's going to happen is white's going to be able to get his kingside attack going. So there's a couple things here. Positionally, f5 is quite good for white, right? That's a good way to get the attack started, and then rook lift the rook over. And also f takes e5, unleashing this rook against the pinned knight on f6 could be very strong as well. So white's got some pretty good ideas here to get the attack going on the king side. But all those ideas don't really work if you give up this bishop, right? You can't give up this bishop. And so now looks like I should have just gone with my my initial idea. Just it's okay for me to just give up, a couple tempi, a couple moves, and get the queen back to where it needs to be. I was worried about f4. Like I wanted to stop f4, right? But this is not such a huge deal. Not anymore, because there's no bishop on g5 on h4 anymore. There's much less pressure over here. Now I don't want to take, because that could potentially unleash this bishop. So I would just play queen e8. And if we trade queens, white has no attack, and then I'm gonna win a pawn, right? So white probably oops, not the right move. White probably just drops back, right? But I do win the pawn now. I do win the pawn. Bishop takes, knight takes, threaten knight e3. And, after something like queen d3, let's see, well, I'm up a pawn. Knight goes back. And again, this game is far from over. But I do have a healthy extra pawn. So white's going to have to really prove that his kingside attack is worth it. And it shouldn't be enough here, not for a full pawn. But anyway, after the game, after I played g5, this kind of, this is trade in blunders, right? My opponent gave me, well, first, I missed my chance to get a huge advantage by playing bishop a6 and not playing g5. my opponent then gave me that, chance back, right? This chance for an advantage back. But then I went ahead and just traded it back to him again, right? G5 is just... So here we're just trading blunders. G5, yeah, it just weakens these light squares too much. And there was no way for me to try to win this pawn while I have these weaknesses, right? It was just too dangerous. White's always going to... If I let this knight jump into f5, there's always going to be threats against my king. It's just too dangerous. So after knight g3, there's nothing better for me. There's nothing better for me than this repetition. It's actually white who should not repeat. White should not repeat here. White should actually be thinking of playing for a win still. So after bishop c8, obviously queen a4 is... I'm sorry, bishop a6. Queen a4 is not a winning attempt, right? So maybe instead queen e2 keeps this queen... it defends on c4, but it also keeps this queen on the king side. Keeps it a little bit closer to the action over here, so it can quickly swing into h5 or g4, let's say. Okay? So, anyway, interesting game. I guess, yes, it is the Samish variation. This was the... So we go back here after a3. After b takes a3, this is the Samish variation of the nimzo-indian. So I hope you guys learned something today. Not the most exciting finish to this game. Ended in a threefold repetition. But we did get to see, we had a break from all the Sicilians we've been playing, right? So we had a break from the Sicilians. We did get to see a nimzo-indian. I talked you through some of the basic plans for black when white plays an early a3. I talked you guys through this capture and then what is the positional ramifications of that, and then we it kind of fizzled out too much, right? It fizzled out, but hope you enjoyed it. If you did enjoy this video, please consider subscribing to the channel. Keep an eye out for future videos. Have a great day.